The lights flickered over the living room as guests cheered, clapping their hands to the beat of the music. The smell of chocolate cake, laughter, and soft chatter filled the air. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my year, my 21st birthday. Balloons hung from the ceiling, gold and silver streamers danced in the fan's breeze, and a bright banner spelled Happy Birthday, Lila. I had planned everything myself, the playlist, the snacks, the decorations. My mom had smiled and offered to host it at home, saying it would be a family moment. I didn't expect that family moment would be the last time I'd ever feel at home there. When I leaned over to blow out the candles, I saw her standing near the kitchen doorway, my mom, dressed perfectly as always, her expression unreadable. She smiled at the guests, her voice honey-sweet as she thanked them for coming. But as the laughter grew louder, I caught something else, a low whisper. She leaned toward my brother, Ryan, her hand shielding her mouth. Her words sliced through the noise like a blade. While everyone's here, she said softly, go and change the locks. I froze. The lighter still flickered in my hand. Ryan looked startled for half a second, then nodded. My chest tightened. Change the locks. While everyone's here. What did she mean? I laughed awkwardly, pretending not to notice, pretending it wasn't my mom who had just whispered betrayal into the air. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I'd misheard. Maybe she said something else. But as the party went on, Ryan slipped away. My phone buzzed with notifications, birthday wishes, pictures, tags, and I forced a smile for the camera. Yet every time I looked at my mom, I saw that same calm, practiced expression. The one she wore at funerals or when she lied to our father before he left. After everyone had gone home, I helped her clean up. She barely spoke. When I asked about Ryan, she said he'd gone to the store. I wanted to believe her, but the sound of a drill echoed faintly from the front door, metal turning, locks scraping. My heart started to pound. Mom, I said, my voice trembling, what's going on? She turned to me with a cold smile, wiping her hands on a dish towel. You've had a wonderful night, Lila. Maybe it's time you started thinking about where you're going next. Next. I repeated. What do you mean? Out, she said simply. You've been living here for too long, doing nothing. It's time to grow up. Move out. Start your own life. I blinked. You're kicking me out. On my birthday. Her tone didn't change. You knew this day would come. Ryan's moving his things in here. You'll manage. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. I had been working 2 jobs, saving money, yes, but I wasn't ready. She knew that. She knew my lease had fallen through last week, that I had nowhere else to go yet. I swallowed the rising lump in my throat. You could have told me. You didn't have to. I just did, she said, turning away. I ran outside, heart hammering, and sure enough, Ryan was by the door with a new lock half installed. He didn't even look at me. Mom's orders, he muttered. When I walked back in, she was sipping her wine, scrolling through her phone as if nothing had happened. You've always been dramatic, Lila, she said. Don't make this harder than it has to be. That night, after she went to bed, I sat on the porch with my half-eaten birthday cake beside me, the candles melted into waxy puddles. My suitcase was packed, my throat sore from holding back tears. I watched the moonlight flicker on the new lock, shiny and silver, mocking me. I didn't have the strength to argue anymore. But inside, something darker began to grow, a spark that burned hotter with every breath. If she wanted me gone, fine. I'd go. But I would come back. Not as the daughter she could control, but as the one she would regret betraying. And that was the night I promised myself revenge. The city was loud, unfamiliar, and cold. I dragged my suitcase through the rain that night, replaying her words again and again. While everyone's here, go and change the locks. Each syllable pulsed like a wound that wouldn't close. I found a small room for rent above a bakery, the kind that smelled of sugar and regret. The walls were thin, the window stuck, and the mattress creaked every time I breathed. But it was mine, and that was enough, for now. In the following weeks, I learned how to survive. I picked up an extra shift at the cafe, slept 4 hours a night, and saved every dollar I could. I told no one what had happened, not my friends, not my coworkers. They thought I had moved out by choice. I let them believe it. My mom didn't call, not even once. Ryan sent a message once, sorry, it wasn't my decision. I didn't reply. But silence gives you time to think, and thinking gives you power. Every night after work, I wrote in a small notebook, plans, ideas, possibilities. I thought about my mom's smirk, about how she always played the victim while controlling everything around her. She'd always told people I was the difficult one, the lazy dreamer, the ungrateful daughter. I remembered how she'd lie with ease, how she'd humiliate me in front of relatives to make herself look strong. So I began to plan. It started with a job posting. Administrative assistant, real estate office. The address was familiar. It was the same real estate agency my mother's boyfriend, Harold, managed. I knew their systems. I had interned there one summer. I applied under a new name, Lila Moore. My mom's last name was Harper. Close enough to sound real, far enough not to raise suspicion. Within a week, I had the job. From that office, everything unfolded. Harold handled the properties under my mother's name, her rentals, her investments, her precious weekend home by the lake. I quietly copied documents, took photos of signed agreements, and watched. My mother didn't recognize me when I first walked into the office one afternoon to deliver papers. She glanced up, smiled politely, and went back to her phone. It was almost laughable. All those years she studied my face, and she didn't even see me now. Over the next month, I discovered her secrets, hidden accounts, undeclared income, falsified tenant contracts. She had been renting out one of my late father's old properties without telling the family. That house had been his pride, the one he'd wanted me to inherit someday. She sold it quietly after his death and forged his signature on the last document. I found the digital trail, the emails she thought were deleted. My hands shook as I read them, but my mind was steady. I didn't want her money. I wanted her reputation, her world, to crumble the same way she'd shattered mine. I contacted a journalist anonymously, forwarding every file, every screenshot, every transaction. Within days, whispers spread through the office. Someone leaked the Harper account records. There's going to be an investigation. Harold's furious. My mother must have sensed something, because she showed up to the office, demanding to know who had done it. I stood in the corner, sorting files, pretending to be invisible. Then came the real blow. I had rented the small house next door to hers, a temporary place for renovation storage, according to the paperwork. In reality, it was my base. I watched her through the blinds, the same way she used to watch me. Her perfect image began to crack. Reporters showed up. Neighbors whispered. Harold left her. Ryan moved out. The woman who once whispered commands now shouted at walls. One night, I left a small envelope on her doorstep. Inside was a copy of the first document she'd ever forged, with a note written in my handwriting, "Happy birthday, Mom. While everyone's watching, maybe you should change the locks." I didn't see her for weeks after that. But word spread fast. She'd lost her license, her properties were under audit, and the bank had frozen her accounts. She sold her jewelry, moved into a small rental outside town, and stopped showing up at social gatherings. Sometimes I walked past her new place on my way home. She sat by the window, staring out blankly, her once shiny hair tied carelessly, her world dim. I didn't feel sorry for her. I just felt free. But revenge doesn't end neatly. It lingers, waiting for its next turn. Because one night, as I came home, there was an envelope on my door. Inside, a single line written in her handwriting. You've learned well, Lila. But don't think I'm finished. I stood under the porch light staring at that letter, the paper trembling in my hands. You've learned well, Lila. But don't think I'm finished. The words sent a chill down my spine. For weeks, I had lived in peace, believing I had finally escaped her shadow. Now, it felt like she had reached through the dark just to remind me, she was still there, still watching. I tore the paper in half and threw it away, but it didn't stop the unease that crawled under my skin. Days passed, and small things started happening. My mailbox was left open when I was sure I had closed it. Someone had keyed the side of my car, carving a single letter, H. My apartment door had scratches around the lock. The bakery owner downstairs said he'd seen a woman lingering across the street at night, wearing a long coat and scarf. I didn't need to ask who it was. She wanted me scared. She wanted control again. So, I did what she never expected. I stopped running. I began preparing, quietly. I changed my phone number, backed up every piece of evidence I had against her, and informed the detective handling her fraud case that I believed she was trying to retaliate. He advised caution, but I didn't want caution. I wanted closure. For years, she had manipulated, deceived, and destroyed everything that didn't orbit around her. My revenge had stripped her of her power, but not her obsession. This time, I would end it completely. One stormy evening, I drove to her new place on the edge of town. The road was slick, streetlights flickering. Her small house sat crooked behind an overgrown hedge, its porch light barely glowing. I parked across the street and waited. Rain drummed against the windshield. Through the window, I saw her silhouette pacing. Then, suddenly, she turned off the lights. My heart raced. This wasn't fear anymore, it was confrontation waiting to happen. I grabbed my umbrella and crossed the street. The door was unlocked, as if she'd been expecting me. Inside, the air was heavy with dust and perfume. She sat in an armchair by the window, a glass of wine in her hand, smiling faintly when she saw me. I knew you'd come, she said softly. You always come back. I stood there dripping rain onto her carpet. What do you want, Mom? What I've always wanted, she said. Respect. Control. My family together again. You ruined everything. You did that to yourself, I shot back. You lied, you stole, and you kicked your own daughter out of her home. What did you expect me to do? Thank you. Her smile thinned. You think you're righteous. You humiliated me in front of everyone. My friends, my career, my name, gone because of you. You think I don't know it was you who leaked it all? I didn't answer. The silence between us was sharp enough to cut through the rain outside. She stood, walking slowly toward me. You and I are the same, she said. You learned from me. Manipulation, planning, patience. You didn't destroy me, Lila, you became me. I shook my head. No, I became what you made me, strong enough to survive you. She laughed quietly, setting her glass down. You think this is over? I have one thing you can't take from me. Before I could ask what she meant, she reached behind the armchair and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was a silver key. My stomach dropped. This, she whispered, is to your father's safe. Everything you used to expose me came from copies. The originals are still inside. With your name all over them. It hit me like thunder, she had kept proof that could make me look guilty, that I had tampered with records. You wouldn't dare, I said, though my voice betrayed me. Oh, darling, she smiled, you should have learned by now, I always dare. But she underestimated me again. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. You're right, Mom, I said quietly. I did learn from you. That's why I made sure the police already have every file, every signature, and every video of you forging those documents. This isn't a game anymore. Her expression froze. What? They'll be here soon, I said. And when they come, maybe they'll finally see what kind of woman you really are. Her composure shattered. You can't do this to me. She screamed, rushing toward me. But I stepped back, letting her anger burn out in the empty room. The sound of sirens grew louder in the distance. When the police arrived, I stood outside under the rain, watching as they led her away. Her eyes met mine one last time, no tears, no apologies, just that same cold fury she'd always carried. The next morning, I went back to the house she once locked me out of. The paint was peeling, the garden overgrown, but it still smelled like childhood. I turned the old key I had kept on a necklace for years. The lock clicked open easily. For a long moment, I just stood there, breathing in the silence. It felt different now, not empty, but peaceful. And for the first time since that night, I smiled. Because the locks had changed again. But this time, I was the one who owned the key.